with Marcus Head.
So without further ado, I'd like to introduce a person I like to call my new friend. And actually, I know he's my friend because we've had some great conversations. And you guys are really going to be surprised at this interview. So without further ado, give it up for Haywood Nelson. How you doing, brother?
Good, Marcus. Good to see you, brother. Good.
Man, I'm excited to have you here, man. So let's go ahead and get started and get into it. So first of all, for those that don't, like the 4 or 5 people on this word, don't know who you are or some of the things that you've said, let's go ahead. Please introduce yourself.
Introduce myself. Haywood Nelson, actor, writer, producer, 1970s funky digiologist.
So we all know you from What's Happening and What's Happening Now, being Dwayne.
Yes.
On the popular show. So real quick, let's talk about the show real quick, because I did a little research and I found out the show actually was not actually called What's Happening when it first started out.
No, it was not. Actually, What's Happening originally was the TV series of Cooley High, the movie Cooley High, which I love to death. Lawrence Hilton Jacobs, Glenn Turman, great film. So Eric Monty, who wrote Cooley High, actually was in the production deals along with Norman Lear, Bud Yorkin, and Bud Yorkin ended up joining Saul Turteltaub and Bernie Ornstein. So that was Toy Productions. And most all of these cats, they all came from like Embassy Entertainment and all of these different companies where they produced most of the big sitcoms, All in the Family, all the shows leading up to What's Happening. So for whatever reasons, which is way beyond my knowledge at the time, I was a kid, but there were disputes and other things going on between Eric Monty as a writer, creator, and the executive producers. And, we were at the reading table one morning, and I'll never forget, in Burbank, California, and we're sitting at this long table, and they said, listen, we need to change the name of the show. And change your character names. And we're like, oh, really? Like, oh, okay. He says, so, we don't really know, but you all, and basically they're appealing to the African-American sensibility here. What's a good name? We need something popular, something cool, something cool. And everybody's blurting out all these names and stuff. And I'm from New York. I'm a teenager out of New York City, so it's like, for those who don't know, in the 70s, style was everything. We have lots of culture. We have style. We're cool. It's the 70s, we wore the right clothes. We had to good sneakers and, wearing pro-keds, and we had all the style, And so I'm listening to all these comments and I'm like, why don't we just call it What's Happening? And he said, excuse me? I said, what's happening? He went, what do you mean? I went, oh, I'm sorry. Why don't we call it What's Happening? And there you went, yes. Everybody was like, yeah, that's cool. I was like, yeah, like, what's happening? Yeah, what's happening? And then from there, we all named our different characters, except for Rerun. He was named Rerun because he, I guess, couldn't graduate the 12th grade. He had been in there 4 years in a row. So he was called Rerun,
Wow.
But that's how that all pretty much came about. Yeah.
Wow, that's some serious nuggets right there. Now, I heard you mention you was at a young age. So how old were you when you started the show, and how did you actually end up at that table?
That's a 2-part question. Actually, when I was doing What's Happening, I was 15, just turning 16. However, the run up to it is what really is the heavy part. I was pretty much a veteran already at that point. I had already done multiple national commercial campaigns, all the toys from the 60s and 70s. I did most of the commercials, and they grabbed me in, things like Johnny Lightning and Hot Wheels, Rock'em Sock'em Robots. They, a lot of the board games, Campbell's Soup, Libby's on the label, and Campbell's Good, and Lavoris Pucker Power. Anyway, a run of Madison Avenue ad agency endorsements led me up to shooting a movie called Mixed Company. And then from there, brought on to Broadway. Actually, I auditioned, I screen tested along with Bernadette Stanis, actually with Chip Fields, Kim Fields' mother. She was reading, and we both read as the brother and sister on Good Times.
Really? You actually auditioned for Good Times?
Yeah, I was one of the last ones kept. And actually, Chip Fields then moved on to some other projects, and Bernadette Stannis and I screen tested together, and they signed us.
And you was gonna be JJ?
No, Michael.
Michael. Okay, you was gonna be Michael.
So we flew back to New York. They did not give me the role. They gave it to Ralph Carter, who had done like 2 Broadway shows. So he had a lot of live audience experience, and he's real talented.
Right.
So they gave it to Ralph. I went back to Broadway in Thieves with Marlo Thomas and Richard Mulligan, Valerie Harper, all these different stars. And Bud Yorkin came out and saw the show. I guess Norman Lear told him, you got to go check this kid out. He came and saw the show, and next thing you know, they signed me and flew me back out to be on Sanford and Son.
Now hold on, we're gonna talk about that in a minute. No, don't touch on that just yet. We're gonna talk about it in a minute.
Well, but that was the lead up to the Grady series, which is the spinoff of Sanford and Son. And then that got canceled in 10 weeks, but it was the same producers, Toy Productions, Saul Turtletub, Bernie Orenstein, and Bud Yorkin. And so they flew me back to New York and said, we want you to actually, it was Whitman Mayo that played Grady on Sanford and Son, said, I want you to go read for this role in New York. I'm like, oh, okay. So we fly back to New York. I guess they were shooting the $100,000 Pyramid in a Broadway theater. And when I walked in, it was like a population of people. Lots of people, right?
Wow.
Maybe about 300 people reading for the roles. And Mabel King, who played the mother on What's Happening, was actually on stage in the Shirley role. She's in the soda shop. And Danielle Spencer, Dee, she went up and did her little piece as Dee. It was great. And then I went up and I did my part as Pooter from Cooley High. And actually, it went really well. They came up to me after I finished reading and says, you got it, man. We're flying you back to L.A. tomorrow. I went, we just got back. I got to go see my grandmother, my grandfather. I was like, you don't have time. So my mom and I jumped on the plane and bounced. But I think if there's a comment I want to make about it, is that this is a testament to the great management that was behind me and the great momager that I had, my mother. Because I had Kathy Dowd, this 5 foot tall, maybe 4'11", Irish woman in the 1960s Mad Men ad agencies, right? And so she basically said, I'm going to send you up for all the things that I think you're good for. They're not going to be ready for you. They're not going to expect you. But you go in there and you do what you want to do. Don't worry about what they want. They don't know. Do what you feel.
Wow.
Read your copy. I know you know how to read. We've tested before. You're really good. Read the copy and do what you feel. Use your mom. Ask your mom questions as you need to. So that was the process. And I would walk into auditions and they would go, they would be like, okay, Haywood Nelson, hi. Like, almost like, what are you doing here? And I'm like, hi. I didn't care because Kathy Dowd told me I can come in here and do what I do. And that's what I did. And I would read and they would go, yes. And they would give me, so that's how the commercial thing started. But that same ethos and philosophy remained all the way up to me auditioning for Cooley High. And then that day where I had to tell them about naming it What's Happening, and we became What's Happening, and then we went on from there, and the rest becomes pretty much history. Yeah.
Wow, that's something. And a lot of people don't know about the Grady because it only lasted a year, but it had you and it had Joe Morton.
There was a number of different people. Oh, Carol Cole, Nat King Cole's daughter.
Yeah,
She played my
wow.
mother.
So speaking of the What's Happening family, I also wanted to, because, me being a director, I know what it's like being on set all day. Sometimes you're doing 8, 10, 12-hour days.
Yep.
So your TV set is actually your family set because you with them more than you at home, with your regular family.
Sure.
So do you still keep in touch with your cast? And when I talk about the people that are still here, like Ernest Thomas, who played Raj, and also Daniel Spencer, can you tell him about the relationship you guys have built and still have today?
Well, the relationship between the cast and What's Happening has so much to do with the journey, the experience. Ernest is a phenomenal actor. He had already done a number of different things. He had been on Broadway. He was a really, really good actor. He came on board. Fred Berry was like a rock star. He's a music industry cat, or he had already been with Johnny Carson, Well, I'm still trying to get on with Johnny. He had already been with Johnny, even though I had met and knew Johnny, because when we did Grady, we shot right next door to Johnny Carson and The Gong Show. In fact, our prop master, Gene, on the Grady, he became Gene the Dancing Machine on The Gong Show. And that was from right next door. But you've got Ernest Thomas with his great acting, Fred Berry with this swagger as this music industry cat. Danielle Spencer was just like natural. She had this natural thing. Shirley Hemphill was completely green. I mean,
Really?
she could not read this. She just didn't. She wasn't an actor.
Now, she had a stand-up comedy background.
Yes. Her timing was impeccable. She was the one that started the trend when we would get our reading on Monday mornings with Network watching. And you have a cold reading. You had never seen the script before. You sit down like, oh, man. Especially in the beginning, because you don't really know you're still developing your character. Later on, you know your character. You sit down on a Monday, it's like, whatever, open it up. The character speaks for you. But in the beginning, it's like, oh, the angst, cold reading in front of Network. Shirley would just get up there and she would just do what she ad-libbed through the whole thing. And when the reading was over and Network left, she took the script and tossed it over her shoulder. And Shirley improv what's happening. That's why she was so good, because it's coming from in here. You know what I'm saying? It's very natural. And we got in there, man, and we started dicing it up and getting it done. And the relationship between all of us is because we had to rely on one another. This is something that was so very new they were trying to do. It was very different. Yes, there was Happy Days, but this is Cooley High becoming something else. And that something else had to do with our relationship with one another. And it was beautiful, but that segues into a very heavy part of life. Danielle Spencer, first season is in a tragic car accident on Pacific Coast Highway. Tragic.
Wow. Really?
Killed her stepfather, Tim Pelt, who's a very famous African-American actor from the 60s. You can look him up.
One thing I've noticed about you is you can remember the names like it was yesterday. Everybody from the 411 lady to everything. It's just all the names just run off the tongue like.
You mean it wasn't yesterday? Oh.
Now, real quick, you mentioned your relationship with, the cast, but you and I talked, before then about a special relationship you had with Fred Berry. Can you tell me about that?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, Fred, the entire cast is my family. But Fred and I, we were close brothers. We were the two siblings who hung out. He's much older. I mean, Danielle and I were younger. Everybody else in the show was 10, 12, 14 years older than we were. So, but Fred was married to a woman, Francesca Berry, who's a dancer, a very talented choreographer today and dancer. But they lived up in Northern California, even though we shot in Southern California. And they took me with them one weekend. After we finished taping on a Friday night, jumped on a plane, bounced up to San Francisco, herb teas, and the house has got plants everywhere. I was like, what am I into now? This is beautiful, man. And I'm like, Fred, you live like this? He's like, yes, that's right, brother. And he goes walking in the kitchen, whatever. Very, very comfortable. Very small, modest house, detached one-car garage, little itty-bitty two-bedroom house. Very, very, very nice. But what was beautiful was the next morning. We ate, but then we jumped in their little Honda Civic. I mean, the one with the little wheels. The little Honda Civic.
Little wheels with a big man. Right.
We stopped in the mountain and we grabbed water out of the mountain. And we bought apples. I'm like, where are we going? And we go down to Half Moon Bay to the beach. And when we're down there, it's a stable. And they had horses. And they had a horse already ready for me. And we fed the horses apples, and we jumped on the horses. We're riding on the beach. It's fog, and we're riding all up and down the beach. We got in the water with the horses and swam with the horses. And
Fred, wait. Fred got on a horse?
Fred was, Fred Berry was an amazing person. First of all, he could dance. He was acrobatic. He could flip. He could just do backflips, standing start. Very amazing athlete. And yes, he loved horses. He got up on, and his horse was the biggest horse I ever seen in my life. He is this short guy weighing almost 300 pounds. And he got up on this horse that's standing like 16 and a half hands tall. I mean, this big white horse. And his wife had her horse, and they had one for me. But he was a very good rider. And then, so he and I kept up the tradition in LA, and we used to ride in Griffith Park. I became associated. Well, first of all, our director, Mark Warren, directed Sammy Davis Jr.'s variety show. So Sammy Davis Jr. would come to the set all the time. We always would see Sammy. And he came to me and said, "I hear you ride." And I went, "Yeah." He goes, "I have something for you." And he gave me an idea, a concept about a black jockey from back in the 1890s, and who was like this famous jockey. Still today, his record's unbroken. So, another friend of mine, Reginald Dorsey, who's a black cowboy, very famous actor and writer-producer, and he's also a bona fide black cowboy, just inducted into the Hall of Fame. He and I joined the Black Riders of the Purple Sage, which is a riding group in Griffith Park, and we used to ride. And we brought Fred with us. And, he could keep up. Fred was good. He really, really could ride. He was a very amazing guy.
Well, thank you for sharing that story, man. But I got to talk about your energy, man. You talking got energy, memory, like you like in your 30s. So I got a picture here. I want to show everybody when you was 11 years old about you. You had a big afro. So tell me about this picture right here.
All right. So that photo is definitely authentic. There's no question about it. It's actually from the movie Mixed Company. And I was playing a kid who was adopted into a white family whose father happened to be the coach of the Phoenix Suns. And that hair was crazy because I didn't wear my afro like that. Because anybody from the 70s know when you wore your afro, after you picked it out, you used the next half hour to pat it back in and use your fingers to get it just right. I mean, every angle on that afro had to be perfect. So that picture you just showed is kind of the antithesis of that, but it was very much on character at the time.
Wow. So do me a favor, Haywood. Tell me some secrets, because like I said, we talked about men eating right, and you had a very interesting way of telling me of your story on how you stayed fit and just eating right, about men getting in the kitchen and cook. Tell me about that.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, first and foremost, thinking right, having a good, positive outlook on life, and knowing that you're blessed. You're here. You have the opportunity to do amazing things as well as help others. So having that in one's acknowledgement first and up front is that's the start for me. That's the base. That's baseline. Beyond that, I come from a family of men who have always cooked, not just grill. I mean, they got in the kitchen and burn and cook it up. But my life changed as I got more independent in my early 20s, I would say. Well, I say in my mid 20s, I was able to buy a boat, and I had a yacht in Marina Del Rey, and I'm a scuba diver. So I would go and I would get out there and catch my fish and prepare them and cook them. And it started a whole trend. I mean, I even worked on other commercial boats as a shipmate, untangling hooks and lines and all that, filleting the fish after the trip was over. But I always came home with a big Ziploc bag of fish fillets. So then it became, well, what's going to go with that? I'd be sitting at home. The only food I bought was for my dog. I had an Alaskan Malamute. I spent hundreds of dollars for this big bag of food for her every month. But I started getting into buying vegetables to go with my fish and preparing my own meals. And that has stuck with me till today, all my life. I think that cooking is vital to living, man. Not just the health part, but appreciating the food. It's like the preparation is part of the nutrition for me, because you're sourcing it by finding good things to organics and otherwise clean food to actually prepare. Then you're taking the time to prepare it, and then you're tweaking it to your taste. And if there's anybody else around, you're also making it to feed others. And there's nothing better than food to spark social interaction and cultural interaction. So I'm into the different cultures and the different food. I love My family is West Indian, so there's a lot of different West Indian foods, Barbados and such, Bajan food. But I love my Italian food. I love Indian food. I really like Asian stuff. I'm heavily into Japanese food because I like fish. But that whole thing is about taking care of what you have here, and really, especially for men, man, because we do a lot of things. Some men drink and others, stay up late, some stress, some work all the time. We do a lot of things to ourselves. We're resilient, but we really got to feed it. And I think that it really starts with nutrition, man. And I do that. And that nutrition thing makes me feel good, makes me feel good, makes me think clearer and better, faster. I can tell the difference in this test tube of a body when I haven't done right. My reaction time and otherwise. So that's my barometer on how I'm eating, how I'm living. And they all coalesce into something that makes a balance for me that I try to maintain. And I'm not perfect at it. Yes, I've stepped into all that whole realm, but my brother and I were talking about it the other day. It's not like I'm hiding out in the woods wearing some hemp underwear. I haven't gone that far.
Okay, real quick. And I appreciate you mentioning that, especially as men, especially as Black men, because like I said, we do a lot and we have a lot of health issues. So I really appreciate you mentioning that. But because I'm a foodie, I got to ask you, what is your favorite fish? And do you have a certain recipe? Like I have a recipe with fish is I will go ahead and put milk in a bowl. I'll crack an egg, mix it up, and I'll put my favorite season, which is lemon pepper, in there. Then I'll go ahead and get the flour, shake and bake. Then I'll go ahead and dip the fish, cut little slits in it, put it in a bowl, and then I put it in a bag and shake it up and fry it. So what is Haywood Nelson's secret go-to recipe?
First of all, in my life period, I'm a minimalist. How I like to decorate my home, how I like to dress. So if I'm decorating, in my house, I want it to look like a museum. Everything has a place, and it's where it belongs. And if it gets moved, it gets put back where it came from. Therefore, if you're in the complete dark, you worry not, because you know exactly where everything is. And so when it comes to the food, it's the same thing for me. I like simple. I don't like it all mixed up. I like things separated so I can see what I have. And I like to sample it the way I want to sample it. My favorite fish, unfortunately, we have to also be very much into something that I am, and that's our environment and the ocean. We have to really take care of our oceans. They're in trouble. The planet's in trouble, but our oceans are really in trouble, and we're overfishing. And unfortunately, I like Japanese food, but that's one of the biggest violators. But what's happening is you have a lot of established nations doing the fishing in developing nation waters. They're overfishing their waters. They're putting an economic strain on the people that are there, and then the fish are becoming depleted. My favorite fish, sea bass, Chilean. However, it's on the endangered species list now. I don't eat it anymore. I stopped.
Okay.
And there are other sea basses you can have, there's European sea bass and otherwise. So some kind of a white fish. I love salmon. And there's other kind of white fish that you can cook and prepare. But whatever fish, and my favorite is yellowtail. I love yellowtail. However, what I like to do is, first of all, as much as I enjoy it, I don't fry. Not anymore.
Deep fryer? You the deep fryer guy now?
No, I don't. I use my air fryer.
Air fryer.
I'm a heavy olive oil consumer, but when it comes to fish, I like to take it and I season it. I have my different seasonings. I put my turmeric on it. I put, my garlic powder, hardly any salt, maybe a little sea salt, at the most. And I have other seasonings. The key to it for me, though, is about longevity. I don't live to eat. I eat to live. And that's how I prepare my fish. I use the ingredients like turmeric and otherwise that are very good for the system. I drink lots of water. I'm interested in my body being alkaline versus acidic. So there are vegetables that help keep you alkaline. There are other seasonings and other preparations that can keep you alkaline. And we're all we're going to fluctuate up and down from alkaline to acidic depending on the night before and what you did. and I definitely go out and dance and party and have a good time. But you have to know the next day that you need to change up and do what you got to do to put everything back to normal. Homeostasis, get your system back equalized. So in preparing my fish, it's with always that in mind first. And then you don't worry, the taste will come. And as long as you got the proper colors on your plate, you're good.
Right. There you go. It's all about the presentation. So let's go ahead and talk about something that a lot of people may not be familiar with, your biggest passion. Let's talk about your passion of writing.
Oh, yeah, man. That's everything to me. I learned early on with the show What's Happening that it's all about the writing. I
agree.
You really have to not only understand the original concept, you have to understand the arc. The story takes an arc, and you're creating that arc, and the characters have an arc. And to understand all of that and utilize that to create something is the highest honor that I can find. And so I've really mastered it. I've taken my time to make sure that I am a very proficient writer, and I'm a good writer, and I'm writing from authenticity, narrative. All of these things are important, but it's most important because nothing seems to be new anymore. Everything that we see, we've seen before. It's just being redone. It's respun, which is fine. I'm totally with that. I do it. However, as a culture, and what got me involved in acting from the beginning was I didn't see a lot of people on TV that I recognized. I didn't see, and not just color, because nowadays I can see a black person that I do not recognize. It's not like what I know. I want to see more of what I know. I want to be able to identify with it. And I think that today, young people, I want to encourage them to write, because you can. And it's very easy to get what you wrote to a point where it can maybe take another step. And, that's something that I have a whole masterclass I'm ready to drop on that. But for the sake of time, I'll just say I want to encourage young people to get down with that. Write poetry. Just start there. Write poetry. You don't have to worry about the rhyming. You don't have to worry about the timing. Go from your heart and be authentic and write. And then from there, and blog. Blogging is great. But from there, develop stories and write and blog from your guts. Come in from what you really think and feel, not what's politically correct, not what you've been socialized to think at home when you were raised. Write from your heart, from the moment. It might be different tomorrow. You may change. So what? Then you write from that authenticity. But write. And that's what I do. I write, and then from there, take it and develop it as a showrunner to either get it on the big screen, domestic or foreign, because I've done both, or get it into the whole content distribution medium, or all the mediums that exist, that kind of thing.
Wow, I've noticed that your attitude and your demeanor and your energy really picked up when your eyes just lit up when you talked about writing. I can see that passion in you. So, man, and me being a writer, I know exactly where you're coming from with the arc, and as you said, just right. So now I heard of
production also. Production, writing is awesome, but to me it needs to feed towards an end. And I also tell everybody I'm no longer in show business. I'm done.
Okay.
I'm in business show. Put a good business together and a good revenue model, and attach a great show to it. And okay, sometimes they come together, in unison, but always have that business side balancing along with the show side, and then put it together. That makes sense. Otherwise, it's not worth it. I'd rather go scuba diving and call my peoples, and we go dive, or go ride some motorcycles, or race a car, or fly a plane, or do something like that, other than trying to make a piece of content. It's got to be right. It's got to be authentic.
I got you. And speaking of business, you and I are working on a business partnership that we're working on. We can't really get into it because we're still working on it.
Wait. But what a great new friendship and brothership, And I really appreciate what you're doing. I mean, I don't know how. I mean, I know you have your audience and your viewers, but I don't know how many know all about you. But you really, really are doing some great things, man. And you're staying in the game, and you've got family. You're rocking it. You're keeping the balance on all of it, and that is encouraging and it's inspiring. Yeah. So working together and doing some things, man. We're talking. We don't have it all locked yet, but we have a great idea about what. And, especially when you're dealing with somebody like me, Mr. Hey. I mean, come on. Yeah.
Man, well, I really appreciate it, especially coming from a icon like yourself, man. Doing that makes me feel good about all my hard work that I'm doing. So, but we ain't gonna talk about me. But is it true that you was actually a writer on the Sanford and Son?
No, I actually didn't write on Sanford and Son, but I got to hang out with the writers. But more importantly, I got to hang out with Red Foxx and LaWanda
Okay, tell me
Page.
about that relationship. Tell me about those relationships.
Oh, straight mentoral. It's just they were mentors. I mean, they were a little raunchy. LaWanda. I kind of grew up around some wild stuff when I was young, but they were very, very careful to monitor what I think on what I heard and
Okay,
monitor how I
gotcha.
behave. But I got to watch their process, their timing, and how they construct. And they would get the script, but they rewrote the scripts. They would rewrite the scripts right there on the set, and I got to
Okay,
learn. And so, of course, me a writer on those shows and grading and all, maybe because of my input, yes. I got a chance
okay,
to
all right,
modify, because if it didn't fit in my mouth, I'm not saying it.
right. So, I mean, how many people can actually say they got to hang out with people like that on the set with the writers? So, wow, that's just mind-boggling because Red Fox is one of my biggest influences as far as just. I mean, what people don't realize is Red Fox opened up the doors. First of all, he was the first person that started comedy albums, first and foremost. He was the first person that actually took show business to the road, and he was actually one of the first comics that actually opened up his own comedy club. A lot of people don't realize that, and I found out that you would never believe who his business partner was at the comedy club that he owned. Bill Cosby.
Oh, that makes sense.
Bill Cosby used to do the books and did the manager and everything else like that until he just couldn't take it. He couldn't take enough of Red Fox. And Red Fox developed, of course, we all know Richard Pryor. That was one of the first places. Ronaldo Ray, Slappy White, and
Yeah, all of them came through the sets of What's Happening, man. All of these people, Flip Wilson, all of them.
well, I can't give it away, but I'm actually doing something that's relevant to Red Fox, but I can't give it away. But yeah, writing is definitely your passion, and like I said, we've covered a lot of things. So actually, since I have you here, and I know you've been part of the process, and I know them asking you have some type of relationship with Wendy, or you just watched the show. Touch on how you felt, how all that went down, as far as how her career ended on the Wendy Williams show after all these
Well, I
years.
mean, look, Wendy is somebody who's always been very, very kind to me. I was able to go on WBLS when she was on radio and spend some time. I saw her when she was doing her show a number of times. She was appearing at NBC. I think it was on Meredith Vieira show or something. And I got to see her, and we talked. Very, very kind. The troubles that I've read about, because I don't know a lot, but what I've read and heard, troubles me, bothers me. I don't wish that kind of thing on anyone. Any one of us can befall hard times. I don't care who you think you are. Just when you think you're impervious, you're going to get knocked down. It happens. What's more important is how you get back up. And at the same time, I can say I understand a producer's standpoint when you're producing a show or a series, and you have to make the hard decisions, or you're just not ready. Go do something else. But if you're going to be a producer, you got to make the hard decisions. And making that decision to not have Wendy come back, I don't know what the criteria or the decision-making criteria was on that, but I'm sure it had a lot to do with what's going on with her, at what stage was she at in the whole process. And of course, maybe being in it, she probably wanted to be back immediately. But the objective producer is going to weigh all things and going to do what is the greatest good overall, especially for the show. And so bringing in guest hosts, I get it, which gives Wendy a little time to try to get it together. But when you bring in a Sherry Shepherd, it's because you've decided, look, we have to really take this thing to the next level. And Sherry Shepherd is the perfect person for that kind of thing. She has all the experience. She has all this great energy. She's upbeat. She's fun. She's silly. And she's serious. She's very appealing. She's busy rebuilding herself, and she has. and working on her health and her body and her image. She's very, very busy and active, and that's the kind of thing you want from your artist when you're the executive producer and producer of a show. So them making that decision to not bring Wendy back is not one that I can comment on with any great detail because I don't know a lot about it all. I do understand to some degree as a producer myself. But the particulars I don't know, and I have prayers that are out and strong thoughts of positive for Wendy, that she rebounds from all that she's been through and come in and reinvent herself. I mean, we're all reinventing ourselves all the time. Look at me. I've been behind the scenes all this time. I'm working at Jazz at Lincoln Center, doing a lighting technician, NBC as a lighting and props and everything else, because I love the industry as a whole. However, I'm an actor, and I am reinventing that. And so we all do that on a regular basis. And like I said, it's not what happened to you, it's how you get back up. So, Wendy, I give love.
I got you. Well, let me just say, definitely our prayers and thoughts go out to Wendy Williams and her family. And I'm really excited about Sherri Shepherd getting a new show, and she deserved it. It wasn't because she just taken over for Wendy. She has her own new show, and she deserves it because a lot of people don't know Sherri been doing this.
She earns it. She has earned this.
Yeah. So shout out to Sherri Shepherd. Hopefully one day I'll get on her show.
Yeah, Sherri, love you, baby.
Yeah, perfect. So heard you mention the Jazz at the Lincoln Center. Tell me a little bit more in depth about that, because I think it's very fascinating for somebody like you to be doing this project.
Well, yeah, first of all, you got to check your ego and your pride, because I'm supposed to be in front of the camera, above the line. So what am I doing, below the line, behind the camera kind of thing? But I enjoy it. The Union, Local 1, IATSE Local 1. It's great work. It's technical. It's very technical. It's very dangerous. But I like the fact that preparation and proficiency together bring about fantastic performances and productions. And, Wynton Marsalis has been so instrumental in creating a great institution up there at Jazz at Lincoln Center. I mean, Lincoln Center in general, we love it. But Jazz at Lincoln Center has its own little niche that's so wonderful up in there, man. And it's very highbrow, and it's everything is done very meticulously. And the people that I work with are very passionate about being part of the jazz scene. And I am into jazz. I love jazz music. My dad was a jazz musician. My uncles were jazz musicians. I grew up, them teaching me and my dad to play drums and picking up the bass guitar and playing with it. It's a wonderful environment for me to work in. It's not work, I mean, it is work. I work hard, but it feels good being part of that institution and then bringing my technical acumen and my commitment to excellence to it is something that makes me feel really good about me.
I got you. Now that we've talked, you've been in front of the camera and then you've been behind the camera. What are the differences? What differences have you learned?
It's the same. It's based on respect. It's based on preparation. It's based on your training. You have to really prepare. You have to be ready, whether you're in front of the camera or behind the camera. You got to prepare. You have to respect the other people because it's a collaborative art form. So whether I'm the star of the show or I'm the production assistant, it's the same level. It's all, you have to have respect for everybody else, and you should expect it to be reciprocated from others, And so, me working behind the scenes has taught me, it's made me a better actor because I really get a sense of what is needed, and there are limitations on what you can do as an actor. So if you know the camera and you know the lights, you can find your mark, you can find your light, but at the same time, you may get kind of improv in what in your acting, and I might want to spin around and do some things. But if my frame is here, I have to talk in here. I can't talk out here because you would never see it. So to understand the tech side makes me a better actor because it helps me make better choices in being true to the character. So both sides of it. Yeah.
Speaking of improv, I have an improv comedy show coming out called Live and in Color, and it's very similar to Saturday Night Live. We got a lot of comedians, actors, and things. Would that be something you'd be interested in doing some improv?
I love sketch comedy. It's fun. It's
Okay.
fun stuff.
Okay.
Yeah, no
All right.
doubt. You
All
know.
right. Man, brother, I really have appreciated this time, and the time just goes by fly. But before we get out of here with all my guests, I like to do a quick get to know the guest.
Okay.
So I got a couple of questions I'm going to ask you, and I want you to just go ahead and give me the honest answer, and let's go ahead and go
All
from
right.
there.
Rapid fire.
So first question: Michael Jackson or Prince?
Both.
Both. If you had to pick one to pay to go watch, who would it be and why?
Prince.
Have you ever met him? Is there anybody you haven't met?
Prince and I used to run into each other all the time up at the Right On magazine offices with Cynthia Horner. So I used to see him up there all the time. Michael, I mean, I know the whole family. Mrs. Jackson, Catherine Jackson, and my mom were friends. I was on the basketball team along with Marlon, Jackie, Tito, Jermaine would come in and out. No Michael. But, we played in the celebrity basketball together. So I knew all the family. We used to race our Porsches and stuff together out in the desert and carrying on. So, yeah, I mean, I knew the whole family. Michael, I think, what do you say? I mean,
that's funny. How about Janet?
Perfectionist. So talented. What he could do with a vocal was amazing. I loved his dancing, too, but I had a better afro.
Okay. Favorite cereal?
Favorite cereal? It was funny because I don't eat cereal anymore so much with all the carbs. But my favorite growing up,
Okay.
I was a Captain Crunch guy. I loved Captain Crunch. Yeah. That was really my cereal. Today, if I'm eating cereal, I'm looking for the health stuff. So I'm going to eat Total. There's a bread that I got to speak about. Angela Bassett is the one that made it known. So Ezekiel bread is sprouted bread. It's not regular
Right.
bread. It's sprouted, and it's healthy for your body. And I get Ezekiel bread, when I go, and I'm not, I mean, no endorsement. I'm not being paid. I'm just saying, in my healthy life, that's what I eat: Ezekiel bread if I'm going to have carbs. And they make a cereal, an Ezekiel bread cereal, and that would be my choice. Yeah.
All right. So the first big check that you got performing, acting, or whatever, what was unique? What was the unique purchase that you made?
My very first check I got acting, I was 5 years old. So to answer that question, I really couldn't tell you. I have no idea. I never saw it. I never thought about money. I never acted with a check in mind, which, along with what Kathy Dowd told me, just go in there and do what you do. Don't worry about what they do. Not worrying about the money also is a big part of the freedom of letting me become who, I became and who people, become to know me as. So I don't know what was done with that. That money, went into the family, went into trust funds, went into stuff like that. My first purchase from money I made, I bought my first mini bike. I got my first mini bike and then my first motocross bike with some of my money. I was into fish tanks. So I got my first large fish tank with all the, my reverse osmosis and my, just, cleaning the tank, buying all my fish. I spent money on that. And then later on, I bought a Datsun 280Z automobile.
Wow, my dad had one of those.
Yeah, I bought my 280Z. That I remember that, and I financed it through the union and paid it off, and was proud of myself. And then I went and grabbed the Porsche. I thought it was something.
Excellent. So this is a question that throws a lot of people off. If you had to go back and the knowledge you have now, and you can go back and tell your 19, 20-year-old self, because let's keep it real. You was like, I remember watching a poster of you I had on my wall. You was with that little chain you had, and you had the little shirt on, and you had the little chain, and you made chains famous, the silver chains famous.
I wore my gold chains now.
your gold and your silver chains. So what would you tell your younger self with the knowledge you know now you would tell yourself before he really got into the business?
Well, like 19 years old or so.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot going on in my life. The show had just been canceled. I wasn't sure what was going to happen next. And I was in an incredible relationship with a lifelong friend, my heart, Jennifer Bryce. And her uncle, Sidney Poitier, had us come over to the house one time. And I went over and kicked back, just talking, him and his wife and his daughters. And he called me into the living room, just he and I. I guess when I had man talk, I was a little nervous. And we sat down, but he was so cool. Sidney just kind of, Uncle Sid, he was Uncle Sidney. He just talked to me. And he said, buy a farm. I was like, what? First thing I do is I'm looking around. I'm in this big mansion in Beverly Hills. You telling me to buy a farm? And he says, buy a farm. Have your farm. You still have your place in town and all, but buy a farm. And he didn't elaborate too much. But in hindsight, he was on time. Buy land. Buy property. Don't just buy and flip. Buy land. Grow food. Grow your own food. Help the community. Give food away. Share. But make sure that you can always go home to your farm and you have something to eat and you have somewhere to be and you have land that's your domain that you can claim. And I didn't listen to that. I got into real estate later in a different way, but I didn't listen to that. And I really, if I could talk to my 19-year-old self, I would say, listen to Uncle Sidney and buy that farm, man. Get that farm. And put an airstrip on it so I can fly in and out,
That is fascinating and mind-boggling to just think about that. Wow, that really is.
Yeah, and then I could have kept the girl. I was in love with her. I could keep my babe, Hey, it is what it is.
My last question is, what just advice would you give to the new people in the business coming up, in the entertainment business?
For the new people coming up, do it. You are it. There's nothing you have to go and become a part of. You are it. Right. Just right. If you write, it will find its path. And with technology today, digital technology, you don't need someone for distribution. You can just do it yourself. Put it out yourself. Get your own YouTube professional channel. Put it out. Of course, later, things are going to crop up. You're going to have big names coming and wanting to pick it up or grab it up or grow it up. That's fine too. But do it. Don't talk about it. Don't spend too much time thinking about it. Just do it. And even if you put it up and it bombs and it's horrible in other people's estimations. So at least you did it. You tried.
You did it.
And then take the notes of the comments that they made and put them into a positive, make their adjustments. Never be afraid to pivot. Pivot. Pivot fast. If something's not working, pivot. Get out of it and try the right thing. And also trust the data. I'm a data science nut. I love it. I love analysis. I love prediction, predictive analysis, statistics. Trust the data. And therefore, you'll know what to pivot to. But definitely do it.
Wow, brother, I got to give you your flowers. You are a true professional. I can tell the passion that you have for this business, not only for the business of the entertainment, but just
business in general.
Yeah, just life, period.
Yeah, life. Yeah, and life. Agreed.
So tell everybody how they can follow you on. I got to tell this quick story. I remember we was talking and I was booking you for the show, and I didn't hear from you for a while. So my first thought was like, man, I know he probably ain't been on a computer or probably don't know about the media thing, so he probably don't know how to work the computer to give me his pictures and his videos. Boy, was I wrong. So please tell me where everybody can follow you.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not as active as I probably should be, and I will get back to it. But I'm there, Facebook under my name, Instagram under Haywood Nelson Official, Twitter is there. TikTok. I just went into TikTok. I haven't put anything up yet.
That's where it's at, bro.
Little small things, but we'll see. I got a little bit of comedy in me, so I might have to throw up a few things. We'll see how that goes. But yeah, all of those you can find me there. And. As far as technology, I love technology. I mean, I love writing code. I'm not some big computer programmer, but, I'm a student and I know how to write, a few things in Python 3, a little C++. I play with it a little bit, some Swift from Apple. But get your hands on it, man. I tell everybody, get your hands in there. You're never too old. You're never too young. Get in it. Have some fun. And that's what I do. I love it.
Well, I'm going to tell you this, brother, right now, because I know you know the business and I know the business. After this airs out and it gets on all the podcasts and everybody watches it, you're about to get a lot more phone calls because there's a lot of knowledge that people didn't know about you that know about you once they listen to this podcast and get it out. And we're going to get it out. And like I said, I appreciate the time, brother. I'm glad to call you a friend. I'm glad I met you. I just feel a great working, not only business relationship, but a partner friendship as well. Can't wait to meet you live and in person. And man, I just really appreciate you, man. It's rewarding when you get to do one of your heroes that you watched growing up. It's rewarding to actually meet and then have a great. Because brother, I really enjoyed this podcast interview. I really did.
My final word on it is that's my blessing. It's my blessing. I have been given so much. I am absolutely passionate about what I can give back now.
Okay, well, we know the podcast is coming because you are definitely the candidate to have a successful podcast, my friend.
Yeah,
so
we're
definitely.
We're going to talk. Yeah, we're going to talk.
Yeah,
all right?
We're going to talk. We don't want to give it away. But everybody, once again, give it up for the living legend, the producer, the actor, the writer, the fish guru.
That's it.
Haywood Nelson. Thank you, my friend, so much, man. And
thank you, Marcus.
Man, like I said, much blessing, much love, brother, and we'll be in touch soon. I really appreciate it.
Respect.